Diontae Johnson is the biggest winner from the first day of full padded practices with the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. The first day of full pads saw Diontae Johnson reach his full potential. We'll talk about it. More winners and losers from the first day of full pads, including both rookie quarterbacks. Where did they fall? And Kevin Stefanski's new approach to camp sets the right tone for the regular season. I do want to thank you for being in every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making this your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed, with bonus content on some weekends. It's totally free to you. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcasts. And, of course, at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, where you can also get involved in the show by sharing your thoughts on anything we discussed today in the comments section. This is your team, so be part of the conversation every single day. And today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And first day of full pads, obviously, came on Monday for the Browns. It's always kind of an unceremonious start to the real football that's being played and a one step closer to the regular season sort of beginning here. And I think it's also, as I talked about on yesterday's show, I think it's also sort of the real first barometer we get, right? Like, yeah, the first 4 days, you start to see guys getting back into shape and getting a feel for things, getting their feet back underneath them. But when the pads come on, it's when you really can start to evaluate guys. And there were some winners and losers. We'll get to the full list here coming up in a minute. But Diontae Johnson, I think, had the best day of anybody at camp on Monday. And it's interesting because I was talking just yesterday about the fact that Diontae, I kind of came into camp thinking like, okay, he was that next level down from Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, who I'm envisioning are the top two guys on this depth chart. And I thought he was kind of next in line as a veteran in this league who's proven some things. Yes, despite the distractions that came with him last year and the bouncing around the league and all those things, this is a guy who's proven that he can play at a high level in the NFL. And the Browns don't have a lot of those players on this roster right now. So I was anticipating him being sort of higher in the pecking order. And then to see him running, with the threes quite a bit the first couple of days, a little bit of mixing in with the twos, I was kind of surprised to see where he sort of stood. But I think the first day of full pads worked wonders for him. I think it was a really strong day. There's a couple different plays that come to mind. During one of the earlier 11-on-11 sessions, he caught a nice pass from, I guess both these passes I'm going to mention are both from Dillon Gabriel. But he had one from Dillon Gabriel early on where he was actually running where I was standing. I was kind of on the back side of the play off to the left. And he was running on the far side of the field and ran basically a comeback route. And where Dillon put the ball was a little bit more outside than where he was. And he was able to kind of just get a hand on it, tip it to himself, and then make a diving catch out on the far side. And it was a really, really nicely done play, really, really nice catch. And I think that was kind of the start of, okay, we're mentioning Diontae Johnson's name a couple times today. And then he similarly had another nice play with Dillon Gabriel in the final 11-on-11s that they did. And this was more of like a moving 11-on-11 where they were like actually moving up and down the field. They weren't just going back to reset to where the ball was. And he ran a deep out on Cameron Mitchell, got him turned around with a really precise, nicely cut route, and got himself open going towards the sideline where Dillon Gabriel was able to hit him on a nice ball and make a big play. So those two plays obviously stood out the most. And I think spoke to a day where Diontae Johnson just was really, really strong in general. He had a couple other moments as well, but those were the two biggest ones. And this is more of, I think, what you're looking for. This is the Browns, frankly, need that version of Diontae Johnson. They need a guy who can be a playmaker in the passing game. because they're outside of Jerry Jeudy, there's not a lot of people or a lot of guys that they feel or that they know, I should say, at this point, because they feel like they have guys they can depend on to a degree. I think they feel that Cedric Tillman's ready to take another step. I think they feel that maybe a Jamari Thrash can kind of come along, but those are all just kind of guesses. Like they don't know for sure. They don't have evidence that they have a lot of proven talent in this room right now. And Diontae can be that if he's doing what he did yesterday. It was a good sign for the Browns to see him making those types of plays. And I think it's just a testament to, again, once they put the pads on, things change a little bit. Like there's certain guys that know how to play at this level and play once all the pads are on, and once there's higher stakes and all those different things. He knows the nuances of the game. He knows how to sort of use certain things to his advantage. And so I thought it was a really nice day for Diontae Johnson in general. And it was good to see him sort of step up and rise above a little bit and climb up the depth chart a little bit here after noticing the first few days that he was a little lower than I sort of anticipated initially. Both those catches sort of caught some oohs and ahs from the fans in attendance. And I think that's exactly what fans want to see. They want to know that there's something left in the tank for him and that he's going to contribute in a meaningful way. And frankly, like Diontae needs that. Diontae needs those types of days to make this roster. He needs those types of days to, set himself up for success once the regular season rolls around, because he's a guy, as we are well aware, who is kind of just like hoping to stay in the NFL at this point. He talked about it back in the spring. Nobody was calling. It was just the Browns. The Browns were the only team that called him after his whole debacle last year. And so if he is going to make this team, if he's going to play the season and play in a meaningful way that maybe allows him to then prolong his career and maybe, either stay in Cleveland or end up somewhere else next year, he needs to have a good season. And I'm not saying it has to be like, 1,000 yards or anything, but he just in a supporting role on this team, he needs to perform up to the level that we know Diontae Johnson has performed before. And I thought yesterday was a step in the right direction for him. Now the question is, can he continue it? Tuesday, they're not going to be in full pads. They can't do 3 days in a row, so they're going to do sort of a middle day with no full pads. They'll get back to full pads on Wednesday. But we'll see if he can sort of keep the consistency there, because to this point, it has been a quiet camp for Diontae Johnson up until yesterday, when we finally saw him really break out in a meaningful way and do some nice things and make some nice plays. And it was the Diontae Johnson that you're hoping the Browns signed up for, and that you're hoping the Browns, brought into this room sort of out of desperation because they didn't have a lot of guys, but that can do the things that you're hoping he can. And again, that supporting role behind Jerry Jeudy, maybe even Cedric Tillman. And by the way, Cedric Tillman had a nice kind of like snagging catch over somebody yesterday on the defensive side. So I think both the receiver, both two of these top receivers that are going to be counted on for a heavier workload and have to kind of prove themselves worthy. I think both had good days yesterday. I think the offenses in general had pretty good, depending on who was running the quarterback position. I think both had solid days yesterday. And we'll elaborate on that a little bit more, because Diontae Johnson wasn't the only one who was a winner on the first full day of pads. Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel add them to the list. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show in the Keene that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off their killer last-minute deals. Yet last year, I actually used Game Time for the first time. I bought tickets for my wife and I to go see Ohio State, Michigan. And the results of the game, yes, unfortunate, but we get to say we saw the eventual national champions in person. And with their transparent ticket pricing, panoramic seat views, Game Time became my go-to app for buying tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, Just create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So we talked about Diontae Johnson being one of the biggest winners of the fully padded practice on Monday, the first fully padded practice, I should say. There were others, though, as well, and we'll start with the quarterback position because with Kenny Pickett dealing with this hamstring issue, I thought that both Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel had solid days and made the most of an increased rep count because that's the big sort of that's the fallout from Kenny Pickett's absence here, at least for a few days. We don't have a timeline yet of when he's going to be back. Kevin Stefanski talked about that a little bit and, made it pretty clear that they don't have an exact timeline, but they're going to kind of just take it day to day. They're going to see what he, how he feels. He's going to get treated and they'll kind of go from there. But as I talked about yesterday, it's tough with these soft tissue issues, the hamstrings, the muscle pulls. Those things can oftentimes be, they can take longer to heal than you would think. It doesn't sound like it's anything serious when you hear about these issues, but sometimes they linger. Sometimes they cause a player to have to deal with more treatment and things than you would sort of anticipate. And so it's a kind of a waiting game. And as Stefanski also said before practice yesterday, he made it clear that Joe Flacco would take the most first-team reps, but that Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders would be in the mix in terms of like getting increased workloads as well. Shedeur Sanders, I can tell you, hasn't taken any first-team reps, but I did think he made the most of the reps that he was out there. Dillon Gabriel, same thing, as he saw an increase in his first-team reps that he was able to get. I think on the day I had Gabriel down as 7 of 9 for the day passing. I had Shedeur 8 of 8. So I want to clarify because there was another throw he made that would have been a touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns on the day. One of them, the one came on the very last play of practice. And it was a really nice throw on a sort of a corner route to a tight end who cut it upfield and scored. And it was kind of like a boot play. And I thought Shedeur delivered the ball perfectly. But there was another play earlier in the practice where Isaiah McGuire clearly would have sacked Shedeur, but they let the plays sometimes play on and just kind of play out. And so it doesn't take away from the fact that Shedeur made like an awesome throw on the play deep in the back of the end zone to Gage Larvadain in the back of the end zone. He went up, caught it, got 2 toes down for a score. And I know the Browns social media team shared the play. I shared the play as well on social media. It was a really nice throw and a really kind of cool play on a throw up. But at the same time, you can also clearly see that Isaiah McGuire sort of like stops and backs out and doesn't, because you're not supposed to hit the quarterback, obviously. So as a group of media, we sort of talked about it and said like, yeah, that's probably a sack. The Browns sort of signaled it would have been a sack too, but they like to let the plays play out so that you at least get a meaningful rep in there. So he threw that ball up, he gets the touchdown, but in terms of like his true numbers, I didn't add that one into this, but he was 8 of 8 for at least 1 touchdown. If you want to give him the other touchdown, you can give him the other touchdown. I don't really care all that much, but these are training camp stats after all. But regardless, I thought Shedeur made the most of those reps, and that's exactly what you want to see if you're hoping Shedeur Sanders can climb this depth chart and become the starter, is just him maximizing those opportunities, whether they're with the ones or not. And I think he's done that to this point. I think he's really come on strong the last couple of days in particular. I think he got off to a slower start early in camp, and now he's really picking up the pace and doing some nice things. So I'm excited about that opportunity for him. And I think he's showing some nice things. I think Dillon Gabriel, though, was also impressive with the 7 of 9 passing. He had the really nice ball, like I said, to Diontae Johnson. His big thing is that when he misses, he tends to miss high. There was another play where he missed a little bit outside on a pass. And I think some of that is just like his angles. Because he's shorter in stature, he can't see everything as clearly at times. And so I think sometimes he thinks like, I got to get this ball up and over. And so then he sort of sails it a little bit. But when he can see the field clearly, and when he's on, especially some of these boot plays, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see some of what Kevin Stefanski did with Baker Mayfield when he was here, if they use some of that same stuff with Dillon Gabriel, because getting him out in space and sort of outside to throw the ball, I think works wonders for him. but I thought he had another strong day. He looked pretty good with the ones this time around, which there's been some struggles there with the ones of late. But he looks like he's starting to throw the ball even more confidently. And another, like Shedeur, made the most of the extra reps that he was getting in the absence of Kenny Pickett. Didn't throw a touchdown the same way that Shedeur did, but I thought that the passes he did throw, they were pretty far out too on the field in terms of like these 11-on-11 drills. But I did think the balls that he did throw and the work that he put in looked like a guy who had one of his better days of camp. And so I think both those young quarterbacks get sort of the nod on the winner's side of the first fully padded practice, because I think they both had strong days. Another person I threw on the list as a winner was Carson Schlesinger. And if it might have even just been like the one play, but you can tell now that the pads are on, like he was flying around, he was ready to make plays. And one of the biggest and loudest came in the sort of final 11-on-11 drill where he flew up and popped Dylan Sampson, his fellow rookie running back, obviously, and sort of knocked him to the turf. And it got, a lot of excitement from the defense, his defensive teammates. They all kind of ran out on the field, even the guys that weren't out there, and they were, crowding him and celebrating the play. And then it was funny, like one play later, he got absolutely annihilated by, I want to say it was Jack Conklin. So the offense made sure to kind of pay it back. But Schlesinger kind of put himself on the map with the hit, made a lot of noise, which is what you want to hear when the pads go on at camp. And I thought it was good to see him, already sort of making a name for himself a little bit at training camp as a guy that people are banking on having a bigger impact this season, even as a rookie. Losers from the first day of fully padded practices. Obviously, I think Kenny Pickett has to go on there just kind of by default. Not being out there is not going to help him. Now, it's nothing he can do about it. He's hurt. But I thought the other quarterbacks having stronger days, especially the young guys, sort of hurts him in this quarterback race in general. I also put down Cameron Mitchell. He was the one that got sort of turned around on the Diontae Johnson play I told you about, where he ran the out route and got him sort of crossed. He also, on the Shedeur pass for a touchdown that I didn't technically count because it probably would have been a sack, he was in coverage on that play, and it looked like he should have maybe made a better effort to bat the ball down and didn't. And so I thought that was kind of weird that he kind of let it just kind of dropping over his head instead of going up for it. So I thought he had a weaker day than others, but still plenty of time for him to sort of turn that around. And then I also just kind of wrote down in general, the offensive line, I think, struggled a little bit. I saw a couple times where Myles Garrett just absolutely blew past DeJuan Jones, which isn't something that you want to see. But DeJuan also was going against arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL every day. So it's going to happen at times. I'm not going to read into it too much. Let's see what he does when things get really competitive, specifically in a joint practice setting, which we'll see obviously next week and the week after that with Carolina and Philly. But I did notice that a little bit. And I do think some of the other linemen struggled just in pass protection in general. I mentioned the play that Shedeur threw up to Gage Larvadain. That would have been a sack. There was a couple other plays that were sacks. I know at least each quarterback had a play where they would have probably been sacked. Flacco actually had one where he sort of scrambled and took off up the middle. And it was kind of funny how unmajestic a 40-year-old Joe Flacco looks trying to run, but he still got some wheels. And so yeah, that play, every quarterback sort of had a moment where the offensive line gave up what would have likely been a sack in some way, shape, or form. So I think the offensive line is still sort of getting a feel for things. They are going up against a really good defensive front, though, and that should make them better in the long run. But not their best day with the pads going on for the first time. Speaking of trying to get or setting the right, not having the best day or setting the right tone, Kevin Stefanski has a very different approach to camp this year. And I think it's the exact mindset, as Joe Flacco kind of talked about earlier last week, that the team needs as they get ready for a season where everybody is counting them out. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Football is nearly back, which means fantasy football is nearly back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. All the things that you love about fantasy football can be found at Yahoo Fantasy. Of the handful of fantasy leagues that I'm in, my favorite one, hands down, is the league hosted via Yahoo Fantasy. It's been my longest standing league. It does help that the people in it are super competitive. The smack talk is elite, but sometimes the hosting platform you use can make or break your fantasy experience, and Yahoo has it mastered. My friends and I are having a ton of fun playing Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins on August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. So there's been one thing, aside from just individual performances, that's been extremely noticeable about camp this year versus last year is just there is an added intensity to the way that everything is going on. And that's beyond, yes, like yesterday, of course, the intensity was ratcheted up a little bit when you have pads on. But even the days leading up to yesterday, where it was just helmet, where it was just helmet and shoulder pads, you got the sense that guys were really starting to, ramp things up, and that there was more sort of aggressiveness and assertiveness with the way that things are being done, more of a deliberate, there's more of a deliberate approach to things. And you can tell that guys are like really working hard and trying to, not just kind of like go through the motions. And I'm not like the last couple of years, that's how training camp has just kind of been run. And Kevin Stefanski's been kind of blunt about this, and he's been kind of honest about this. Like the idea that these last couple of years, it was a lot more about, well, hey, we were trying to keep guys healthy. And I didn't think about this because I was kind of wondering, like, why did it take 5 years to get to a point where Stefanski's like, you know what, now we're going to run a tough camp? And I think it goes back to like when he first got here, right? When he first got to Cleveland, it was the COVID year. And the COVID year, you couldn't really do anything. There was no contact in buildings. It was like everything was like remote. It was like such a weird, fluky situation. And I almost just wonder if that like set this tone of like, well, hey, we're not going to have to we're not going to go overboard with training camp. Because even the next year after that was a little fluky with training camp because there were still some COVID protocols in place and things. And so I just think like that sort of set the wrong approach for Stefanski when it came to the way he did training camp. Not that it was his fault, because again, COVID was a real thing and there was only so much you were allowed to do. But I do think like that almost set this mindset of like doing training camp a certain way. And I think now he after how last year went and how bad the offense and the team just looked in general during training camp last year, he's now decided like, you know what, we gotta practice like we want to play. And we got to be more aggressive. We got to be more attacking. And I think you're seeing that on the field every single day. I also think there's like a mindset part of this as well. And this is interesting because Joe Flacco kind of talked about this. Now, listen, Flacco wasn't here for training camp in 2023. We know that. He was signed off the couch late in the season, came on, miracle sort of finish to the year, goes on and goes to the playoffs with the team. And it was a magical thing. But he, has been in plenty of training camps throughout his career to kind of know what it feels like and know what the intensity is like. And so I thought it was interesting when he was asked about that the other day. He, opened up about how a lot of what he's feeling here at Browns camp is about like the mindset that the team has. I'll play this clip real quick, but I thought this was some good stuff from Joe Flacco in terms of what he's sensing at camp.
Yeah, listen, I think you can talk a lot about how practices are actually structured, but I think what we're talking about is just the mindset, of a winner and a winning football team and what that takes. And it doesn't matter if you're out here for an hour or 3 hours. There's a way that a winning team takes a field and approaches their craft. And I think there's definitely a focus, and you can definitely tell that we're locked in to, make sure that happens.
I mean, listen, that is a 17-year going on 18-year veteran saying that. He is telling you, hey, this is the sense that I get being out there every day. This is what I'm feeling every single day. We're taking the field with a mindset like we believe we can win, like we want to win, like we're going to attack every day. Like that's the exact type of thing that you want to hear. as you talk about this Browns team and them trying to exceed expectations that a lot of people have low expectations on. I'm not saying that this means, you know what, lock the Browns into a playoff spot. That's not where I'm trying to take this at all, this conversation at all. I would never insinuate that because like I said, I don't think they're a playoff team. I think they are probably more so a team that can get to like 6 to 7 wins, which would still surprise some people, I think, if things go the right way, because they have a really good defense, and if their offense is at least competent, then I think that's kind of the direction they can be or where they can head. But at the same time, it's not lost on me that like there's still a lack of talent in a number of areas on this team. There's still a lot of things that there's still a lot of weaknesses on this team in general. There's still some problems. The quarterback position is still this kind of big old mystery, and we don't know what to expect really from any of these guys, especially the 2 rookies, but also like you kind of know what to expect with Flacco, but it could be a disaster. Like he was very inconsistent in Indy last year. So you just never know. And so understanding that though, like the fact that they're taking the right approach, I do think is a massive step in the right direction. And it does set the tone that this team is ready for whatever the season's going to sort of throw their way, and that they're going to be more equipped to handle certain things than they were a season ago. When things went off the rails last year, they went off the rails fast. I mean, it was bad. It was real, real bad. And so I think they're going to be more equipped to handle that. I think they're going to be more equipped to just kind of, navigate this season. And it starts with how you prepare now in training camp. I'm not saying that the things that happen at training camp and in the preseason are the end all be all. We know at this point, like you read into some of these things, you can't read into all these things because, so it's only part of the puzzle. We've seen guys have great preseasons. We've seen teams have great preseasons and then not be very good in the regular season. 2017 Browns went 4-0 in the preseason. Didn't mean a damn thing. Once they put the pads on and got to playing games, they went 0-16 that year. Like it's not everything. Like this isn't the end all be all for where your season's going to go, but starting off on the right foot in the way that you prepare, the way that you build up to the season, the way that you get ready for the season can go, in my estimation, a long way. And then that stuff translates to the field. If you're in the right mindset from Jump Street, in late July, then, and you keep that mentality and that mindset all the way through camp and everything, and then you get to week 1, you're already sort of in the right mental space to go out and perform at a high level. And, I just think that's great that's the sort of the mindset that they have right now, that they're at least showing in practice. Like I said, you can tell the night and day difference from what it was a year ago at the Greenbrier. It just kind of felt like they were going through the motions. It was very just lethargic. And this year, you're not getting that sense. It's high intensity every day. It's guys, with the pads on yesterday, there was a lot of popping going on. Guys were hitting each other. It's the exact type of mindset you want to see. And it's for a team that is projected to have 4, maybe 5 wins. I think they're walking the walk of, hey, we think we can be better than that. We think we can surprise some people. It might mean a lot. It might mean very little when they finally line up and play games. But it's at least, I think, the right approach that a team needs to have this time of year. And it's refreshing that Kevin Stefanski's kind of embraced this and gone away from what he did previously. Because, I think this is exactly what the team needed to just kind of get themselves prepared for a season where they're being counted out, frankly. And it's a different feel to it, but it's a positive feel. And that if they go out and surprise some people, we'll know that it kind of started back in training camp with the way that they went about their business. So make sure you hit that subscribe button as another episode is in the books. Thank you for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team. We got practice on Tuesday, practice on Wednesday, practice on Friday. So we'll have a ton of stuff to still get to in the week ahead. Make sure Locked On Browns is your first listen every day. And for your second listen, you can check out Locked On Bets, where betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Or, as always, you can keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. See you.